Hello, and thanks again for joining us for another Fathom Live. We apologize if you're just jumping in and on account of a bunch of technical difficulties. Sorry about that. Our live stream software is not working correctly. So actually, what happened is we had an unnamed competitor hurling rocks at our building, and we've been warding them off.
Lies, all lies.
So forgive us. No, really. So we're glad that you've joined us, and to kick things off here. I know this is a different stream, but we'll still be tracking the comments, whether it was YouTube or Facebook, the old post or this one. So go ahead and start commenting and sharing this post now that we have it up here, and we'll enter you into the contest for this upcoming week. But for last week's contest, a bunch of you commented and shared. And by the way, if you comment, you're entered once. If you share and comment, you're entered twice. So a little incentive to do that. So we're going to pick the winner here, and we always like being creative on the show. So Josh is going to. We have a little spinning wheel. You can't read it, but we're gonna have him go ahead and spin the wheel.
Spin the wheel.
Spin
like
the wheel.
White. All right.
Yeah. Here it goes. It's spinning. We have no sound, but it is spinning, and it's landing on.
There we go. Dan Bruner.
Dan Bruner, you are the winner of our yard sign package. So same contest this week. We're doing a yard sign package giveaway up to the value of $200. So we'll reach out to you and make sure you get to your yard sign. So congrats, Dan. And again, continue to share and post. Let us know where you're hailing from. Our guest today is Chris Spear, but before we bring him on, and sorry to keep him waiting too long here, I'll just mention real quick, our sponsor today is Go Social Agent. And if you've looked back at your week of social media posting as it relates to being top of mind, how you doing? I mean, take a look at that and see if you're actually top of mind when it comes to your social media. So the people at Go Social Agent help you do that, stay top of mind. It's very affordable. If you're a Fathom agent, a lot of it's some of it's even free.
For sure.
So you can take advantage of that. They do account setup, automated posting, agent-branded articles, buyer and seller handbooks, Facebook ad campaigns, all kinds of stuff. So visit GoSocialAgent.com today to get started with that. All right, Chris, thank you so much for your waiting here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Sure. No problem.
So knowing, just already having talked with you some, you were probably busy working and getting a lot of stuff done in the last 15 minutes while we were waiting to get the show done.
Or were you twiddling your thumbs?
Or yeah, he's probably Candy Crushing it or something like that. So
no, actually I
was. So Chris, he's a high-producing team leader. He's been in the real estate industry for over 2 decades. He's both a broker and a loan originator. He's really an expert at building client relationships through sphere of influence. So if you want to ask questions during the show, we will monitor the Facebook feed so we can kind of keep tabs on that. But let's just jump right into things.
Well, first of all, I think jumping in, at our new agent orientation every single week, we always ask our new agents to share something that's unique or interesting about themselves, to really introduce themselves to the group. So I want to ask you the same thing. Can you share something, maybe a special hobby, something of special interest that you can share that would really help our audience get to know you better?
think probably the biggest thing is I don't run into too many. I'm a Dallasite, lived here my whole life. I've got 4 guys that I grew up with since we were 10 years old, and we still get together several times a year, golf, dinner, whatever, and just have very special relationships with those guys that we've just never been a time that we hadn't been together.
That is incredible. So I grew up in the military, I think, as you know that. So we moved every few years, and unfortunately, by doing that, you don't really have a lot of those relationships. In fact, I don't think I know a single person that I still communicate with from elementary school, junior high, or even high school, for that matter. There's a few Marines I still connect with, but that's about it. So, to hear other people that have that relationship, it's pretty incredible to me, and I definitely envy you for that. That is awesome. I heard something about baseball as well.
Yeah, I was very blessed, I guess, since I was actually 9 years old. From 9 years old till I was in college, I either was on a national championship team or in high school, a state championship team. I just fell into teams that obviously did incredible. It certainly wasn't on my account, but
No, I
yeah.
don't know. So either you were the star that took every single one of those teams, or were you like more like the lucky sock that you never changed?
So literally
I'll be happy to be lucky sock.
every team that you were on won a state championship.
Yeah, in high school, that's as far as you can go with state.
Oh, right, right.
And then so before, as I was younger, and when I got into college, was national championships.
That is pretty awesome.
Wow. Wow. So you never knew failure when it came to sports. That's
Oh, I knew failure. I knew failure, but yeah.
All right. Well, what brought you into real estate? What attracted you to becoming a realtor?
Wow. The what I was doing was about to take my life. I was an accountant and had an accounting degree, and realized that, oh my gosh, I should not be an accountant. And a buddy of mine introduced me to a real estate company that was more just sales generated, really sales technique. It was a very niche company, and got in there, learned a lot of really cool sales techniques. Not really into a traditional real estate model, but that's what got me into it. And I think anybody that has competition, or if you like competition, sales is really cool because it's as close to as you get to competition. There's no ceiling. You can do as much or as little as you want.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. So speaking of that though, I know you're very competitive. What did you do last year in sales, and what do you anticipate for this year as well?
I did 10 million last year, a little over 10 million last year. It'll be close to the same this year. It's been pretty consistent the last 4, 5, 6 years. And now that I've started the team concept, I'm pulling back a little bit, but I think the volume's still going to be pretty much the same.
So that 10 million, is that your production? I assume that's not the team's production.
Yeah, that's my production.
Very good. So I don't mean to turn this into a sales pitch for Fathom, but you're a very high producing agent. Why did you choose Fathom?
Well, there's several reasons. One, I have everything that I need. You provide. So when you look around, I'm not a brain surgeon, but when you look around and if you have everything you need, I don't need to pay 3 times as much for it someplace else. So the money that I save with Fathom, I'm able to do a lot of other things for clients that I wouldn't if I were someplace else. And then the freedom. I don't have anybody over my back saying you need to do this, you need to do that. And then I've got a phone that I can pick up and make a call at any time and get any help that I need. So I just think it's a no-brainer, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So as far as generating that business then and having the extra money left over from not paying such a high commission split, that's a plug right there. But how do you generate leads? I mean, do you pay for leads? Do you build it through your sphere?
So in my early career, it was leads. It was all leads. I was, matter of fact, some people on this call may know Hudson Floyd. I worked with Hudson Floyd years and years ago. We learned a lot of really good sales technique, great on the phone. I mean, that's one thing. I'm not too braggadocious, but I can say I'm pretty good on the phone. And we learned to convert leads, and we were very good at it. So when I went into, quote, traditional real estate in 2011, I thought that's really what I needed to do. But ironically, during that whole time when I was learning how to do leads, the person that was teaching us how to do that always said they built their business by referral. And everything that anybody that you talk to in real estate for a lengthy period of time that has a successful business, the vast majority of them are highly referral based agents. So as I was starting in 2011 from scratch, it really dawned on me, good grief, why wait or why struggle? Try to start it from the very beginning. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, my business now is virtually 100% referral.
Very good.
That's fantastic. You actually bring up very good points. So as I talk to agents, you're right. The vast majority of our high producing agents that are just single agents, 95 to 100% of their business is from by referral only. And yet, though, when you move into the team side, it's a mix. You've got a certain percentage that's really highly referral based, and you got a very large percentage of teams who are just really focused on their lead generation for the team. But for you, I hear a lot of agents talk about having hundreds or thousands of people in their pipeline. When it comes to your sphere, do you set a specific number that you're going to work with in your sphere, or is it unlimited?
Yes, no. I never go over 150. So because my philosophy is, if I'm going to have a relationship with people, and if I'm going to build on a relationship, it's quite frankly, there's not enough time in the day to have 400 relationships with people. So I'm going to have a maximum of 150, try to cultivate those relationships the best that I can. Of that 150, you're going to have a much smaller group that you're really, really tight with. And you're going to have a smaller group within that 150 that consistently delivers referrals much, much more than maybe one a year, like some of the others. So within that 150, you have subsets, and within those subsets, you give more attention to the ones that are really you're connected with.
No, I think you make a fantastic point. I see this all the time when you try to cast a really big net. You touch everyone very, very few times. Yet you keep that intimate relationship with a few people. You're able to build a much stronger relationship. And of course, as you said, they're much more likely to refer people to you. So in essence, you're building a group of evangelists, people who really, truly care about you and want to see you succeed. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because way too often I hear people say, I've got thousands of people in my database. And very often I look at their numbers and realize they're not closing that many, and that there's a good reason why. So you really need to build that intimate relationship. So I'm glad you're able to reconfirm that.
So how do you determine, who to keep close and market to?
When you do transactions and you kind of get a feel for who is going to move forward with you in a relationship. I ask a lot of intense questions to my clients. I ask questions that make them feel uncomfortable, and when I do that, it helps me see who's really going to open their heart up to me. Because if they don't open their heart, and I have to open my heart, but if they don't open up to me, then you're generally not going to have that really close relationship. So if you think of your closest friends, you've probably told them things that not everybody knows. You've opened your heart up. Same thing with clients. If they open and share with me like I do with them, then you want to see more of them. You want to hear from them more, and vice versa. So to answer your question, you can tell kind of who is really going to be an advocate for you and who isn't.
Yeah, no, that's great. So speaking of that, though, you've got these people you're really building an intimate relationship with, but how often do you touch them? Is it weekly? Is it monthly?
26 times a year on a minimum, of which 12 of those is a monthly newsletter. The others are broken out between phone calls, handwritten notes, lunches, play golf, whatever their hobbies are. Try to incorporate those as much as possible. But my number is 26.
That's awesome. I want to touch one more thing on that. So one of the things you pointed out, which I really want to stress to everyone listening, is you said phone calls and lunches, coffees, so forth. It's really, really important that you're touching people on a personal basis. The handwritten cards are great, but honestly, the more often you meet with them in person, the stronger that relationship is going to be. So I'm glad that you do that, and I'm glad you shared that with us.
You brought up Josh, real quick. I want to the one I've been thinking of this for years and years, and I heard it. If we as salespeople, no matter what you're selling, the word is conversations. Mm-hmm. If you're not having conversations, you're not making money. And it seems like when I talk to, and I'm including myself in this too, when I first started, is that it seems like agents try to avoid conversations. Oh, I'll email them. I'll text them. I'll do an email blast. And when people really want to hear from you, but in your mind, you don't think they do, but they really do.
For sure.
Now, I want to ask you about what kind of marketing you do, and I know you've touched on it some, but when we were talking earlier, you mentioned about, from the very get-go, and I hope we're not going to jump over something we're looking at here later, but from the very get-go, you're already asking for referrals. I mean, even in that first conversation with people. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the first time I meet them, that we sit down and talk, obviously, they're generally going to be a referral because that's where I get my business, right? But in that first conversation, I'm already letting them know that I'm going to be asking them for referrals and that I expect I expect 2 referrals from them during the transaction. Now, I don't just tell them that, hey, I expect 2 referrals from you. But I'm letting them know that's how I build my business, and that's if you're satisfied with the service and the experience you're going to get with me, I just ask that you do the same thing that Joe did for you by introducing us.
Well, that's great. How did you learn this? I mean, did you take any real estate courses or any kind of coaching to really build up your skills for referrals?
Man, I tell you what, I was the big net caster, Josh, just like you talked about. Oh God, there's so many things going and so many things out there. And after about the 98th time somebody's saying, you have to narrow your focus, you have to really get into something much smaller sphere, I just really dove into the internet, and I can't credit 1 or 2. It's just a combination of looking at the different types of coaches out there, because there's so many different personalities of the coaches, the Buffinis and the Tom Ferry and Joe Polish, Dean Jackson, Joe Stump. They all bring different things and different. It's a way of looking at the client, and you're going to see one of those ways that really just kind of hits you. And when I really started hearing them talking about building relationships, which I'd never done before in sales at all, and it just felt right. And I'm telling you, it was just kind of a perfect storm in 2000, at the end of 2011, when all these different pieces started coming together, that I realized I really think that's the way to go for me.
Yeah. I actually want to touch on that one more thing. So I love to hear this because truly, and I preach this a lot, right? The more you truly love and serve your clients and build that intimate relationship with them, the more likely they are to refer other clients to you. But more importantly, the leads you get, and I hate to call them leads, I apologize, but the referrals you get from them are so far superior to any lead you'll ever get from a Zillow or Realtor.com or anywhere else. I mean, you're going to close 95% of those versus 5% of the other. And so where would you better spend your time? So you nailed it. Absolutely.
Having been a team leader and mentored other agents, besides that constant, asking for their referrals, are there other things that you've coached people under you to do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that, and you can equate this to anything. You don't have to have a lot of talent, but if you can do the same thing consistently, and over, it's amazing what simple consistency produces. And human nature is always trying to figure out how to not do things systematically and they want to do it easier and quicker and faster. But so what I help the guys with is purely getting back to basics, doing the routine thing, and holding them accountable, I think, is a big thing that a lot of people, when you work on your own, when you're in your house, you have distractions. I think a lot of people need accountability. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of fear. When you're out on your own, there's a lot of fear because not too many people are great at marketing, accounting, sales, all the things that we have to be, it's hard to really nail them all. And there's some fear involved in some of those. So I help alleviate some fear. And then more importantly, I think one of the biggest other factors is human nature again, is that we generally will sound like a salesman. We generally want to say things that really sound like a salesman. And most people avert dealing with a salesman.
Amen.
And so I help them with verbiage to not sound like a salesman, quite frankly.
So what about goals? I mean, as you're dealing with your agents, clearly you've got a team, so you are focused on your own goals and you're focused on goals for them too. How do you help them achieve those goals, or more importantly, set proper goals and then achieve those goals? I mean, I think you touched on it a little bit with your accountability.
So, so in anything, right? If you have any experience in it, and you know that if I lift weights 5 days a week, that I'm going to be bigger and stronger in 6 months. So it's the same thing with this, is that most of the guys that come with me, they're struggling. They've been struggling. And they're when I ask them, well, what production do you want to do? Well, they throw out this crazy low number because they've been struggling, right? Yeah. So my goal is to help them just say, hey, if you'll do these certain things, I expect you to be at 2 to 3 sales a month within 12 months. And I can say that because I know if they just do the routine things, that's going to happen.
Very good. So like me, obviously, you know me, I'm very much an introvert. And a lot of agents are, unfortunately, are introverts. But with your team, you're coaching them about relationships. Instead of being sales, it's about relationships. What would you recommend to someone like myself who is more introverted to better connect with people that we meet, but also to be able to follow up with them? You shared an acronym once, so I'd like to hear about that.
That's a great question. And so what I would ask you, Josh, is that are you really introverted when you're in a room with one person?
No, I'm good at faking it.
Okay, but would you say you're more introverted with one person or with 50?
I'm probably more introverted with 50. I mean, my natural state, personally. I mean,
yeah, and I kind of,
go ahead.
I feel the same way, right? And so part of that is that we have this fear of that, but when it really comes down to it, most people, when they're one-on-one with somebody, it's really quite natural. And a conversation can occur. It's generally the anxiousness isn't there when it's just one-on-one, but in our minds we believe, oh gosh, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Blah blah blah. But to answer your question, I ran across an acronym called FORD, like the car, Ford truck. Ford. So when you're talking to anybody, if you can remember Ford, F is for family, O for occupation, R for recreation, D for dreams. If you ask them about any of those 4 things, all you got to do is get people talking. And they're going to just, if you ask them about their children, their occupation, their recreation, their dreams, they're generally going to share a lot with you. And your goal is to be a listener and not a talker. Be interested more than interesting. And just keep them talking. You'll find out all you need to know about them.
For sure. So that, you asked the question about being one versus many. Kind of rethinking that question. Sometimes being in a group of a lot of people is easier because you can blend into the crowd and not have to communicate. My struggle has always been when I'm one-on-one with someone is understand, okay, what do I say? Because sometimes people are also introverted and they're not going to just voluntarily give you the information. So you've got to ask questions. So I love that you shared that acronym because that really would help to think, okay, what do I ask? Let's start with family. Let's start with, let's move to occupation. So it gives a series of questions to get them going, get the conversation going. So eventually it becomes warm and easy and the conversation becomes natural from there. So I appreciate sharing that. I know we had a question as well.
Yeah, it's on that note. Dan on Facebook asked, what advice would you give for my agents who are reluctant to contact their sphere of influence? I suppose, it's like, hey, you've got 100 people here on your list or 50 or whatever, go contact them. And it's like, well, what do I just call them up and say, hey, or what kind of advice would you give?
Great question.
So the beginning advice, and again, I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but I would ask Dan to be honest with himself. Does he not want to call them because he didn't give good service to them? Does he not want to call them because he really doesn't know them very well at all? What is that fear, right? So to really be honest with yourself, to go, what's causing the fear? Now, cold calling, I guess that's where I had to learn to get past the fear, because I had to learn to cold call. And so you have to get past that real quick, right? But it's the same principle. Once you really, what is the fear? Nobody's going to come through the phone and yell at me, beat me up because I'm doing a cold call. We have these fears in our head that are really generally irrational. So what is the fear, Dan? See if you can really figure it out. And then if you can't figure it out, you just have to do it. You have to take action. And by taking action, call them up. If they're a past client you haven't talked to in 3 years, call them up and say, man, I am sorry. I have not talked to you in 3 years. Tell them I'm sorry. I'm making a change in my business that I am committing to my clients. This will never happen again. How's it going? How are you doing? How's the family? That's it. Start going. Start talking.
So I want to add one more thing to that. Look, guys, use your CRM. It's not just for new leads. It's also for your sphere. Put your sphere into it and use the CRM to keep notes. That way, let's say, for example, you find out that one of your clients, their daughter's getting married. Go ahead and put a note in the system and actually put the calendar as a reminder. Use that to remind yourself. So all of a sudden, the day before the wedding, say, hey, I understand she's getting married tomorrow. Congratulations. I'd love to send a gift. Where can I send that to? It's just you have excuses to be able to reach out to them, which makes the conversation easier as well. But also you remember more details. So you go back to your CRM, you pull up someone you haven't talked to in the last 6 months. You look over the notes like, oh yeah, that's right. The daughter's in a select soccer team or select baseball team or whatever it is. Now you can, when you call them up, you've got something to talk about. And the fact they're going to be amazed that you remember those details. But it's the magic of the CRM, right?
And then it's not just a generic, how's your family?
That's
it's
right.
How's your daughter's soccer team going?
That's right.
It's a little bit more
it's
specific.
much more personal. That's right.
So,
and Facebook can help with that to catch up too, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, you can
stalk them.
Do a little stalking, yeah. We'll just move on from that. One of the things that we talked about before was differentiating yourself in the industry. And I don't remember what speaker I'd heard talking about this, but the idea was like, if you come into the industry saying, I'm honest, I work hard, and I have your best interest in mind, and you say everything, well, that's what everybody else is saying. I mean, you're just more noise. So talk to me about that and what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one of the first questions that I ask an agent is that, what's going to differentiate you? And without saying just what you said, Jeff, because everybody says they're honest, hardworking, yada, 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 right? So you've got to pick something, whether that's a neighborhood. I became a mortgage broker, not to do mortgages, but to understand the process so that I'm able to talk to my clients probably better about mortgages than most loan officers, quite frankly, because loan officers really they're almost like engineers sometimes. They're not great communicators. The better ones are, of course.
Problem solvers.
But I'm able to dumb it down for what I know they want to hear, right? And I'm only able to do that because I know a lot about mortgages. And I'm not saying every agent needs to. I'm just saying that helped me bring value to somebody that had somebody on their side when it dealt with a very technical issue. I've got a team member now who has a huge experience in construction. So when he's out showing someone a home, he can point out things that I wouldn't even notice, right?
Correct.
So he's bringing value to his client by being that type of expert. You've got to find something that brings value to the client that not everybody else has.
No, I appreciate that.
Well, you had mentioned too. I mean, like you said, if I remember correctly, and I interview a lot of people, so forgive me. I should keep my CRM updated with all of this information. But you're talking about like when you go into a home, for instance, to show a home with one of your clients, you're going around checking out things that they're not checking out to kind of differentiate yourself as the guy that really has your back. Am I remembering this correctly?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
yeah, I'd say, hey guys, go have fun. Look at the house. I'm going to be checking out things you're not going to notice. So yeah, they appreciate that. They get to go have fun, and then I'm pointing out the things that they really need to see.
You addressed your team a couple times. We've kind of glossed over that a little bit, but you built a team a couple of years back, and you've done exceptionally well. Why did you decide to build a team?
I really like sharing what I've learned. And with that, I've realized that as it was very hard for me, it's very hard to come up with all the things that you need to be really, really successful. So I thought, if I have a plug and play, meaning if I can bring their sphere of influence into my systems, teach them how to communicate with their sphere better than they have been, I thought they're going to get the same referral rate that I've been getting. And I didn't know that until I tried it, right? Sure. But it's worked out very, very well. So I'm very tickled that I'm able to share that with them, and it's been successful.
So how many people do you have on your team then?
I currently have three others.
Very good. And how would you say that you attract people to your team? And is this kind of just agents that you've been talking to and you realize there's something special, or do people apply, or how does that work?
It's really been through Fathom and the district directors. Whether, we've got all sorts of teams, right, within Fathom. And they know what teams do and what they don't do. And so I think a lot of it is when they're talking to, whether it's a new person coming into Fathom or if a Fathom person is struggling and they want to try to build a business a certain way, or they have certain attributes, I think that the district directors are at least introducing them to other teams that might be able to help them. So that's really, I don't go out and advertise for it. It's been by referral. Some agents have referred other agents that are on my team. So that's really it.
We actually do that a lot more than people realize. It's kind of a little secret in the company, but we get a lot of agents who come to us. I think this month we're looking about 180 new agents have joined our company this month alone. It's fantastic. But as we're interviewing the agents, oftentimes they tell us that they're looking for a team or they're looking to grow their business and they don't know how. And so we'll take those people and say, hey, have you thought about joining a team? We've got some great teams who are looking to hire. So we do a lot of introductions from that standpoint. And so it's been very good for our teams. And quite frankly, I'm going to brag on Fathom just for a second. I know I shouldn't, but I would argue we've got the best team plan in the industry. And that's not me being biased. I truly believe that. I've ran the numbers over and over and over again. So that's why we have so many teams in this company. But again, our district directors and our recruiters are actually helping recruit people to your team. So we do that quite a bit. And so I'm glad you shared that. But, I see a lot of teams, because we have so many teams in this company, I see a lot of teams that are built around leads, and I see some teams that are built around, sphere of influence, how to basically mentoring and nurturing for them to be able to grow their own business. How's your team structured?
Yeah, it's purely mentoring and nurturing and sphere-based. I let the agents know that I am not giving them leads. I'm not going to generate leads. I choose to give them my own referrals when I do, but there's no promises whatsoever. I'm simply trying to help them build a huge foundational business from the very beginning, because I didn't go that way in the very beginning, and I paid for it with a few years and lots of struggle. But if I can help someone get started on the right path, and I'm not saying leads is the wrong path. Right. I'm just saying if that's the way someone wants to build it, then I love to help them do that.
I'm glad you brought that up because I truly respect you for how you built your team. Most people, and I actually preach this myself, if you really want to build a successful team where agents never leave, you provide them leads, right? They get hooked on your crack and they never leave the team. Maybe that would get me in trouble. I don't know. But, when you provide them leads, it's hard for them to leave. In your scenario, that once you train them properly and they're starting to build that, at 36, 40 homes per year on their own, and they're building up their network, and you've already said this to me as well personally, you recognize that they're going to leave at some point, and you're proud of them for that. So I do a lot of martial arts. And I know that my job as a martial arts instructor is to be able to build up my I don't use the wrong term here, but build up my mentees, my students for martial arts terms, build up my mentees or my agents to be as good or better than I am, and that's really the sign of a good instructor. And so the fact that you're doing that, I really value that because you're turning around and making a lot of high producing agents within Fathom. They're coming in as agents who are seeking to be better. You're training them up in how you've been successful. You're making them successful, and then they move on, and then you add new agents. And so you do have a little bit more of a revolving door, which can be frustrating for some people, but you've got a very unique heart that you recognize that's your gift that God gave you. And so you're constantly pouring into these agents. And so I really, truly value and appreciate you for that. So thank you.
And one of the things that you did mention about that, if you do choose to build a more of a mentorship-based team, you said that you've learned to be more efficient in where you spend your time, since you are thinking, well, perhaps, and it's not guaranteed, but perhaps this person will leave me in a certain time period. You talked about trying to be more purposeful than with your time with them.
Yeah, so like any learning curve, right? In the first 3 agents, we spent a lot of team meetings together. Well, everybody learns differently, different rates, different speeds. So on one hand, they enjoyed the team camaraderie of it, but on the other hand, they're seeing it as potentially wasted time because they know this particular thing or that another agent's talking about, and we're spending a lot of time with one agent, and these other 2, they already kind of know that, they know the answers, blah blah blah. So through the learning process, I've more individualized it, and it's more of a one-on-one throughout the whole process than a group atmosphere.
Gotcha.
So that's helped me time wise. And efficiency wise.
So one of the challenges, though, of not doing a lead-based team, though, is it's a little bit harder to quantify goals. You're not saying, hey, I'm giving you this many leads, you better be converting. I mean, not that I'm saying that's the approach that you just come in and say that. But, how do you set goals then with your team and hold people accountable in a healthy way?
It's actually very similar. Because if you talk to your people and you can keep yourself from calling them fat and spitting on their shoes, you're going to get referrals. Okay? So there's no way you can do this for 6 months and not get business. Now, there is a way. If you're doing something completely off-putting and people don't know you and trust you and people really don't like you, then yes, it can wake up in 6 months. But that hasn't been the case. And so if you do the routine things, you're going to get business and it will build upon itself. I mean, I hate to say that with such a fact feeling, but it's just been it's been the results.
So if I'm understanding correctly too, you basically work with your agents and say, okay, what do you think your goals are? Let's work together to establish reasonable goals. And then once they've confirmed in their own mind, yeah, I think this is what I can do, you're just holding them to that. You're not necessarily setting the bar yourself.
Right. And then in most cases, Jeff, is that I'm really helping show them their goals are way low. So it doesn't do me any good to tell them, oh, no, your goal needs to be higher. But I help show them that they're really going to do quite a bit more than they even thought they could.
Very cool.
So we had another question come in. I can't actually read it this far away. I'm getting old. My eyes are. It says, what key attributes of a mentee makes them successful?
Openness. And that's part of my selection process is that, if they come in thinking they already know it all and aren't open to new ideas, because some of the things I feel are newer ideas and thoughts. I just need them to be able to hear it. I don't need them to be a robot and just take it and do whatever. But I just like an openness to new thoughts and ideas. And because generally, if they're coming to me, they're having problem. So I just ask them to think about new ideas of approaching a problem.
That's great. So, we talk about goals often as it relates to personal production, but are there any kind of other goals you set for you help your agents set for themselves?
Yeah, well, we do contests, and I have fun with it. We do contests that roll into the pieces that I hold them accountable for. Will roll into contests to try to make it a little bit of a competition. Therefore, they're doing for the competition that I'm holding accountable for. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. That's a great way to hold people accountable to goals. But one of the types of goals that I set, obviously we've got an end result, right? The goal is the ultimate end of the goal is the production. But in the meantime, there's other goals we have to achieve to be able to get that production. For example,
correct.
How many phone calls you make per day? How many people do you meet each week? Yes. Setting those goals and saying if you achieve those goals, you're going to be able to reach that production level.
You just stated it precisely, much better than I could. That's exactly what our contests are on: the number of contacts, the number of open houses, the number of da 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 da. Absolutely.
So one of the things I love about that is when you actually set those goals, you can celebrate those small wins.
Right.
You enjoy those small wins, and you know that if you keep hitting those small wins, you're going to be able to really hit that big win, the big win that's going to feed your family and pay the bills and help you retire someday. So,
very good.
Yeah.
So, at what point did you decide to build a team? We've asked that to a lot of people, but I'm curious what your answer would be.
It was I had it in my head for quite a while, but a factor of building the team was I wanted to have people that I knew I could trust, that when I went on vacation, that I could truly turn my phone off. And I want the team members to feel the same way, because I want them to have time off, because I had no time off for probably 5 years. So that was a motivating factor. And then it just kind of all came together. I was just going, you know what? I'm getting kind of tired. Let's either do this or not. And between the wanting some time off and having the dream of helping people, it all came together about almost 2 years ago.
A lot of people talk about when they're building a team, that value proposition. And a lot of team leaders immediately think the value proposition is either the fact that I'm providing them leads or the fact that I'm training them. But that's not always enough for the agents. So what services do you provide your team members to really provide that strong value proposition?
So we are doing, other than their personal phone calls and a few handwritten notes that they may do, then we're doing all the back end for them, all the monthly newsletters, the other marketing that we do to our sphere of influence. And it's all in their name. It's not my name. It's all in their name. And we do the transaction coordination for them. We're rolling out very soon. It'll be a farming campaign for them. So they'll get to choose their neighborhoods that we're going to actually do a program to get them listings where they want them. So I'm always trying to, just as you're doing, Josh, I'm always trying to add something, right, to make it where, wow, why would I leave Fathom? Now, if I left Fathom, so be it. But you're going to do your best to give me a great value proposition, and I'm trying to do the same thing for them.
So I'm going to go off script a little bit. How do you?
We don't have a script. No. What are you talking about?
Kind of moving away from teams a little bit. How do you So you brought something very interesting, picking neighborhoods. How do you pick your neighborhoods, right? So if you say, I want to market to this neighborhood, what are you using to identify which neighborhoods are the right neighborhoods?
So one of the criteria is there needs to be at least a 10% turnover. So look at a neighborhood, and if there's 100 homes, there needs to be at least 10 sales in a year. So 10% is a minimum. You're looking for a little bit higher if you can. You're looking for something. I personally would like an agent to pick where they live, because you generally are going to speak highly of where you live. You're going to know the most about it. And that's what a lot of sales is enthusiasm and knowledge. And if I said, hey, Josh, tell me about your new home, you're probably going to light up like a Christmas tree and talk to me about it. That enthusiasm and everything will come through just as it would in your own neighborhood. So you look at your own neighborhood or someplace very nearby, or it could be a neighborhood that you just really love. I mean, you would love to live there someday, and you just have always admired it. But you also want to have that turnover rate, because it doesn't need to market to a neighborhood that has a 2% turnover rate.
So I'm so glad you brought that up, because I teach that, and a lot of people don't understand that. They throw a dart and pick a neighborhood. I love the way the neighborhood looks, so I'm going to pick that neighborhood. And it's really important to look at the numbers. Even if you're not analytical, take a step back and look at the numbers. So first, identify what price range you want to sell to. My personal advice is usually, if you're first getting started, don't worry about the luxury homes. Focus on what's the norm for your market. Maybe that's $350,000 homes or $250,000 homes. Maybe that's the norm. Then identify several neighborhoods that fit within that criteria. Then go to the tax records. Say, okay, how many homes are in that neighborhood? And then once you know that data, go to the MLS records and say how many homes sold in that neighborhood in the last 2 years. And you start looking at turnover rate, which is exactly what you said, 10%. Some neighborhoods, you got to die before someone moves. It's that popular of a neighborhood. Other neighborhoods are very transient. People are moving in and out. Maybe it's next to a Lockheed Martin, so people are constantly coming and going and relocating. So looking for neighborhoods is going to give you a much greater return on that investment of time invested into that neighborhood. So I think it's really key you brought that up, and I think that's a great thing for a lot of our agents to understand. Take the time and do it, because you might have 10 neighborhoods, but you can't afford to market to all 10 neighborhoods. So once you identify 10 neighborhoods that meet that price range, now you can say, okay, this one's 10%, this one's 4%, this one's 2%, this one's 10%. I can only market to maybe 2 neighborhoods. So now I know which neighborhoods I'm going to actually invest my time in. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I got excited when you said, I'm going to let them pick neighborhoods. So getting off script.
Very good. Oh, very good. So I want to shift gears here, and I know we're getting towards the end here. Life's not all about work. Work should kind of help you live your life, not the opposite way around. But also, I would argue that having talked to other people and just worked with people, your work is better when it's defined between work and life. So you're not always mingling the two together. You tend to be a little bit more focused when you're working. So how do you manage that work-life balance? What does that look like for you?
It really helped when we got an office. So we have an office here in McKinney. We were working out of our home, and it separated home, because we were sitting in our home office till 8, 9 o'clock every night. You were never away from it. So that broke it up, right? And other than that, the challenging part is when you really enjoy what you do. I never, as a kid growing up and even into my 30s and 40s, I'd hear about workaholics, and I thought, how could anybody be a workaholic? But man, when you're doing something you really like and then it's successful, it really is cool. I mean, it really feeds upon itself. But then you wake up and you go, wow, my life is out of balance. So, breaking it up, getting out of the house a little bit more, and then just realizing, you know what, it's time I got to pull back. so it was just a combination of things, Jeff. But there's got to be a balance because, like anything, if it's out of balance, it's going to break.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of expand on something that you said there too. We talked before. You'd said, in the beginning, you can tend to be a workaholic because there's that huge fear factor. I'm not going to have enough business, and so I got to work, all the time. And then you start to pick up momentum, and it's like I got to keep that momentum going, and it becomes a little bit more fun. But then you get into the fun stage, and it's so fun I never want to stop working. And so you go from fear to fun. And so I'm just echoing everything you told me. This is not life experience, but I just thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it. Is that at every stage of your business, you can really turn into being a slave to your work. And I thought that was really good advice. And the same thing, whether you have an office, that you've purchased and you decide to go that route, or, even here or in my home office, I will, okay. Yeah. Now the secret's out. This is my home office. At your home office, even for me, I still set that time. This is when I leave my office and go eat, with my family. That's that time, and I try to define the two.
For me personally, we've got what now 3,300 agents right now. I still work from home. I love working from home, but it's not for everyone. I recognize that. It's funny though. I walk into a lot of real estate offices and it's completely ghost town. So I think most people have gotten used to working from home, but it's not for everybody. For me, my wife knows when I shut that door, at least she used to know, when I shut that door, I'm working. Now, as the kids got older, they got so used to knocking and just coming in. It's like, hey, Dad, you're home. Let's go do something. So sometimes that can be distracting. But really setting those proper expectations is important.
I'd like to say something a little bit more about that too. It's not about being in an office environment. I'm the farthest from it. I would slip my wrist if I had to go into a real estate office, okay, and use one of their offices. So the way that our office is set up, it's very private. It is just us, but it is simply a compartmentalizing home and work for me, right? So please, I don't want anybody to think, oh, they need to go be in a real estate office. No. Those that are busy are out, right?
Yeah. So I did experience that myself. So when you walk into the real estate office, a lot of times people around the cooler, you do have a lot of successful people that are working out of the office. They've got their team. When you're a single agent, you don't need an office. When you start building a team, at that point, you do need an office. I've seen some very successful teams that have a really nice office space in their home and the whole team comes to it. That can be done. But quite frankly, with Fathom, with the amount of money we save teams, sometimes it's to the tune of $30,000 and $40,000 for the team combined. I mean, for that kind of money, you can afford a really nice space, $400 or $500 a month, even $1,000 a month, and still be saving huge compared to being with another company. So you can do that if you want to. But I know for myself, I really like working from home. I like to be able to, flip a switch. I'm done working and I'm immediately home. There's no traffic. There's no, car accidents. There's nothing to get in my way. My traffic jam sometimes is toys on the floor I've got to step over. So I like that personally.
Sure.
Yeah. So let me kind of get off that. I get excited about that part too, because honestly, I'm a big fan of working from home, obviously. But do you have any other tips or ideas you can share with our audience before we go?
So just default with action. I think that's the biggest thing that I hear is that people are waiting for the right lead source. They're waiting for the right this, the right that. And action is so much better than perfection. Because when you're doing something, generally good things are going to come from it. So those that are fearful of talking to their client, their past clients, or even sphere of influence, people they know, all I can say is I just beg you to start, because that is the biggest thing. There is no magic lead source, and if there was, it would be incredibly expensive. So that's really my biggest thing.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Before we actually go, I was going to leave it to Joff to end it for us, but a question came in that I really want to address. And Johnny Holiday asked, in regards to farming, how many neighborhoods should you farm at one time? That's a pretty easy answer. Money dictates, right? So if you only have $1,000 a month or $500 a month or $200 a month, that's going to dictate how many homes you can market to. And really from there, how many neighborhoods. But keep in mind, you don't have to market to the whole neighborhood. And that's something I really want to stress to people, is that just because the neighborhood has 1,000 homes doesn't mean you have to market to 1,000 homes. So what you want to do is you want to go get a list. There's a lot of companies that provide it. I know Capital Title, here locally provides the list. It's paid for, but it's very inexpensive. Like REI Source is a great place. You can download the list for the neighborhood and say, okay, show me all the people here who have at least a 20% equity in their home. Show me everyone who's been here for more than 2 years, right? By doing that, you start shrinking that list. So instead of having 1,000 people on your list, now you have maybe 500 on your list or 400 on your list. Because clearly if someone's got no equity, it's kind of hard to sell. If they've only been there for 6 months, they're not going to want to sell, right? So there's certain things you want to remove people from the list. So now all of a sudden, let's say you could afford to market to 1,000 homes. Well, now that 1,000 homes could cover 2 neighborhoods because you're smart about how you spend your money, right? Smarter, not harder. So I think that's a great question. I think hopefully that answers that. But again, money dictates. But if you're smart with your money, you can spread that across to several neighborhoods.
Can I say one thing?
I was just gonna ask you any last word.
Well, and I would also encourage within that budget, I think you have to be able to commit to 12 months at a minimum, because that's a longer term play. And so a lot of people think, oh, I did it for 3 or 4 months and I didn't get any results. That is a long term play. So please, I feel you've got to at least do it 12 months.
Yes, minimum. Yeah, a lot of people sit there and do it for, do it 1 or 2 times, and they wonder why they get no results. Yeah. It's got to be consistent. And when you say for 12 months, doesn't always mean 12 times. So for myself, I would do it I tried it every 2 weeks, and that tended to be overkill. Once a month wasn't quite enough. I found that 3 weeks was my sweet spot. It's kind of weird, I know, but I did it every single 3 weeks. And I found that actually gave me the greatest return on my investment. So.
Cool.
Very good. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. Lots and lots of practical advice and insight and heart, so I definitely appreciate that.
Thank you.
I hope to help. Thank you. See you later.
All right, we'll see you. Well, for the rest of you, before we let you guys go, remind you that Fathom offers 100% commission on the tools designed for your success. And that includes, that's right, we're doling out stuff. Stock with every transaction, KV Core CRM, and what else? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in there. Yeah. Squeeze pages.
Great technology, great training, great support. In fact, I would argue we have the best support in the industry. Take me up on that. Let's prove it. But like you said, stock with every transaction, stock for every agent refer. We really go above and beyond to make sure we can give you everything you had before at that low flat transaction fee.
Just a little plug for next week. We have Matt Thompson, who's going to be on the show. He's out in the Denver area. And I really would encourage you to tune in for this. He has a unique idea of what he calls his team, and pays very little to no marketing dollars. So that's the route that he's taken. Works very well with his sphere. So I don't want to say too much about it, but the way he's able to accomplish a lot of production in a very little amount of time is just fantastic. So tune in next week, same time, 1:30 p.m. on Wednesday for Fathom Live. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.